So I'm gonna go through some like kind of basics that we're gonna need. You're gonna need a bowl for sure. So that's something that everyone should have. I know. And then if you have measuring cups, that's more than fine. Or if you have a scale, that works as well. When it comes to fresh pasta, it's a very, very simple thing to make. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of ingredients, but there's also not like a set recipe, meaning you don't have to go crazy with the measurements. So if you're cooking for 2 people, for 4 people, 10 people, so in the future, if you decide to do this again, the concept's really easy. So I'll explain it so that we can make it, very easy for everyone. So once we have a bowl, you want to use the bowl? Okay. Once we have a bowl, we just need some flour. And then basically we're going to measure out. Yeah, you're going to hold the bowl, right? So Lino likes to touch everything. Although we make a little bit of a mess, and then my wife gets upset because the kitchen's dirty. But we try to still have fun. But you can use either a scale or measuring cups. And what I recommend is, if you're going to use measuring cups, we're going to measure out 2 cups of flour. If you're using a scale, we're going to measure out 300 grams of flour, okay? So we're just going to put that flour in the bowl and measure it out. So you can either use cups or you can use grams. Yeah, 2 cups or 300 grams. Do you want to do it? Here, you're going to help Daddy. Let's do this together, okay? Here. We're going to pour this. Ready? You pour, 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 pour. Okay. Almost there, Lino. Yeah, good job. So once you get that into a bowl, whoa. Leo measured a little bit too much. Good job, though. Okay. Okay. So once you've measured that out, we're going to measure out some water. So if you did 2 cups of flour, we're going to measure out 1 cup of water. The water needs to be room temperature at least. Yeah. And then if you did 300 grams instead, you're going to measure out 150 ml of water. So basically, when it comes to fresh pasta, it's 50% of the amount of flour is the water. Okay, so that's all we need. And then we're pretty much done. We're just going to get our hands dirty, okay? You want to pour this in? I know you want to do this stuff. Okay, ready? Good job, Lino. So you can pour the full amount of water inside the bowl with the flour. That's more than fine. And then we'll get into the next steps. Very vocal today. Oh, that's not from him. No. Like, yeah, no. Okay. All right, buddy. All right. I know you want to get going. Okay, so I am going to move my camera. You guys have an idea here of what it's going to look like. So we just have water and some flour. And then at this point, what I do is, with Lino, we have some fun putting our hands in. Okay. Are you upset? Here. Lino wants to be like extremely free these days. Is that better? Okay. All right. So once you have this in the bowl with water, hands, and you just basically start turning. So you can have fun with the kids doing this. It's very simple. What you want to do is you just want to get the flour to basically bind with the water. Okay. So once you kind of have that, like that, you can start crushing in order to get it to kind of stick together. Here, you want to do your part? What's happening? Here. Ready? You gotta crush, and crush, and crush, right? And crush. Good job. Yeah. You upset? You tired? So once you crushed and it's kind of like absorbing all the flour, you can move it on your counter. If you see that the flour is not absorbed, you can just add a little bit more water to it. What I mean by a little bit of water is literally like a drop here and there until the flour is absorbed. And then just keep turning. So it's kind of like kneading a dough, nothing crazy. And then once the flour is pretty much absorbed, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it on a cutting board or your countertop, whatever works, because we're gonna knead the dough for a little bit. And after that, we're almost set, basically. Then at that point, we just barely decide to do a specific shape. Okay, so to knead the dough, what you need to do is basically use the palm of your hand, push down, push strong, and pull back. Okay? Push down and pull back. Push down and pull back. And then until it gets smooth, you want to keep doing this. Right, Lee? Here. Now we're a little bit more happy because we have a little more freedom. So Lino's a little bit more happy here. So basically what you want to obtain is something really smooth. And until it's not smooth, you're just going to keep going. Now, if you got it right or you got it wrong, it's not a big deal. The pasta's still going to come edible, so don't worry about that. And then I just shape it as a ball. So to do that, what you can do is either like this type of movement on your countertop, or you can like shape it like this. That's it. So it has to be something pretty smooth. And then we just put it to rest for a bit. And how we make it rest is basically we cover it up. So I get a different bowl and I just cover it up like this. And that's pretty much it. Oh no, crazy, your glasses came off. So it's very simple. And if anyone has questions, please ask me. I can kind of help you. Right, Lino? See, now comes the best part. We just wait to have it basically build some gluten up. And then once that happens, what we do is we basically shape it into a specific shape, which we're going to call cavatelli. It's a specific shape from the southern part of Italy. Now, I see Betsy's husband's working really hard with those arms. So the nice part of making fresh pasta is that you put in a workout. So even though you're eating the pasta after, you're burning the calories, which is really good. And then more than anything else, with Lino, what I like to do is when we'll go and make the shape of the pasta, I like to basically play around with it. So I'll give him a piece and, either he smashes it or we try to make the shape together. And you can all, kind of gauge and understand what you want to do with your kiddos. It's a really, really fun activity for sure. Most of the times Lino's cool with it. He really enjoys it. Sometimes, he might be a little bit tired. So, of course, it's one of those things where, it could be a hit or a miss. But it's one of those things that can be really fun for the entire family to do. And, you get some fresh pasta, which is definitely more healthy than buying it from the store. So. Now, in general, I do recommend using semolina flour. So if in the future any of you wants to use a specific flour, this type of flour here is going to be better with respect to an all-purpose for sure. Yeah, I know. So what that type of flour is going to do is it's going to absorb the water a little bit in a different way respect to like an all-purpose flour. So it's going to be a little bit more hard respect to like an all-purpose flour. So you have to work it out a little bit more. But an all-purpose is good as well. Now, once it's ready, make sure you keep it covered for about 5 to 10 minutes. Nothing crazy, okay? We don't want to go too crazy with the timing and such. Yeah, I know. What's going on with your glasses today? They're falling off. It's like a mess. It's like a mess. Yeah. I know, buddy. So while we do wait for the pasta, I will give you some tips on the sauce. Now, I don't know what type of sauce you will all be making. An easy thing to do is tomato sauce for sure. So if you do have tomato puree or if you do have canned tomatoes, peeled tomatoes, any of that works, okay? So what you just do is just pour it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in a pan. So I'm going to show you guys. In my specific case, I am not going to make or use a tomato puree. I'm going to use some chopped tomatoes. So if you have those as well, that works. So just a pan. I'm going to move you a little bit, okay? Thank you. I put a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Not a lot, just a little. If you want to put a little bit more, you can. Are we going to cook now, Lee? Okay, so I get some tomatoes. And I just basically chop the tomatoes that I'm getting, and I put them in the pan. If you have the tomato puree, you can just put it in the pan. We're not adding any garlic. We're not adding any onions. We're not doing any of that. This is a very, very simple sauce. If you don't want to use tomato puree, you can use pesto as well. Any type of sauce you have, you can utilize with this type of pasta, so it's really easy. Yeah, Lee. I'm going to cut the tomatoes, okay? Because I don't want you to get hurt, okay? All right. So what I do is I just basically chop 4 parts, 2 parts. I put it in the pan with the olive oil, okay? And the trick to a good pasta is going to be the pasta water. So it's going to be the water we're going to boil the pasta in. And then also we're going to create a little bit of a condensation within the sauce. So we're going to cover up either the tomato puree or the chopped tomatoes or the pesto, whatever the case is. So just once you have this, it goes on the flame pretty low. Doesn't have to be too high as a flame. But what we want to do is we want to cover it up. So get a lid and just cover up. Low to medium as a flame. Okay, 1 second. I believe my wife's at work. She wants to come on too, so we'll get her on. So if anyone has any questions, please do ask. I'm willing to help. Besides teaching you how to make pasta, might be your first time or whatever the case is.
Do you have a recommendation for gluten-free flour?
So when it comes to gluten-free, it's going to be really difficult because of course the pasta is not going to build any gluten, and that becomes a little bit of a challenge. But they do sell a King Arthur's brand that basically is similar to, it's similar to regular flour. It will say to be used as regular flour. So the measurements are going to be the same as regular flour, and that's going to kind of work out more. So I definitely recommend that brand more than anything else. But it is going to be a little bit more complicated in terms of being able to create the pasta, but it can work out. So don't worry about it. It's not something crazy that is going to be difficult to do. Okay, so once I have the sauce that's basically going, what I want to do is also get a pot. Right, Lee? Pot. We're going to get a pot, and we're going to fill it up 3/4 pretty much with water so that water can boil. And, we can put it on a high flame easily. We're just going to wait for it to boil. And while it's about to boil, what we're going to do is we're going to make the shape of the pasta. So we're going to get back to the dough now in a second. Another good gluten-free option, I'll show that to you, because when I bake and I make breads or anything like that, it's something that I use. So I'll show you in a second. It's basically buckwheat flour. So you can find it in any supermarket. But buckwheat is all gluten-free. It's a great source of protein also. So that's something that, you can definitely utilize. And Lino is tube fed. So we do with Lino blends where, of course, sometimes we do give him pasta, but also he goes to feeding therapy. So when he's at feeding therapy, sometimes we do try to have him eat pasta and all that sort of stuff, or other things that I can bake. And when it comes to fresh pasta, the consistency is a little bit better with respect to a regular box of pasta because it kind of melts easier in the mouth. So it's a little bit better if you're doing any sort of thing with kids that, you know, do have a little bit of a struggle when it comes to feeding or anything like that. So, yeah, all right. So we're going to get our dough now. So basically, if you have the bowl, remove the bowl. You're going to have something like this. Very easy, very simple. And this is the fun part. So I do recommend, of course, the adults using the knife. I don't recommend Lino using a knife or the kiddos using a knife. So what you want to do is basically cut the dough in 4 parts. Okay. And once you cut the dough in 4 parts, you're going to use 1 part at a time that you're going to work on. So think about it as a family of 4, a regular portion of pasta. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the parts that we're not using, what I recommend is to cover them with a little bit of plastic wrap. Nothing crazy, just very simple. When you cover them, you don't have to like wrap them up or anything like that. Just get a little bit of plastic wrap and put it on top so that it doesn't dry out. So it's going to look something like this. So nothing crazy, as I said. Now, this is the best part, and this is the fun part. So I like to do this with Lino a lot. So we'll see if Lino wants to do some hand works today, some work. Okay. So what we do is we're going to make snakes. What does that mean? We're going to roll the dough out until it gets nice and thin. Okay, thin, pretty much as thick as your pinky. So think about that. Okay, now if this starts getting really long, yes, you can grab a knife. You can cut it into how many pieces you want. Okay, but you have to get it as thin as your pinky. Okay, so this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna start from the middle and start rolling and slowly go to the side, okay? So, Lino, you ready? Lino's like half asleep. Like that, this is a lot of work. So, yeah. So we're gonna roll, right? Roll. Perfect. You want to hold that one? Yeah. You can hold this one. We'll put these here, okay, bud? All right. Good job, Lino. So you're just going to roll it. And then once you roll it and it has that thickness, what you want to do is basically cut it into pieces. When we're cutting it into pieces, we're doing basically pieces that are about ½ an inch. I'm Italian, so I use centimeters, guys. So if I'm saying ½ an inch, I might be completely wrong. Basically, I would say about 1 centimeter long. You just cut it into pieces, that's all. Now I'm going to show you 2 ways of doing this type of pasta. Just make sure they don't stick together. You don't want that to happen. So the first way is basically utilizing your hands. So we're going to get our fingers. I'm going to show you first what I do. So I get my 2 fingers or 1 finger. And I basically, let me see if I get a better view for you guys. Let's get closer. So I basically, with my finger, put pressure on it and roll back, okay? And it basically makes this shape here. And this shape is called cavatelli, okay? So with 1 finger, I put pressure, I roll back, and I create the shape, okay? Just very easy. When you're creating them, what I recommend is to put them in a separate tray so that they don't stick. So, for example, I'll be right back. I'm getting a tray, okay? I get some flour. I use an aluminum tray or, whatever works. Okay. Put some flour in it. And the ones that are made, you can just dump them in the flour. Okay. You can kind of move them around so that they get nice and coated. And then you just keep going. Okay. So that's one of the ways you want to do it. Ready? Let's use your fingers. Come here. Let me help you. Yeah, I know you know how to do it. You're a pro. Okay, ready? Here. So what I do with Lino sometimes is I put it next to his finger and I just put pressure. So it creates a little hole. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to do the movement with him. But, I try to keep him involved. I'll just put it on the surface of something and then just try to have him do a little bit of a movement. So he created one here like this. It's a little bit bigger, but that's okay. They get a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. It doesn't matter. You're eating it no matter what. Yeah, but we like to do it as an activity. So all the ones that you're doing, you can put them in that tray. So just keep going, okay? Now, more often you do it, easier it's going to be. Like it takes me 2 seconds to do them because I make them quite often. Now, another alternative is once you have that snake, so let's go back to the snakes. And this is the way I like it the most, is actually I cut it a little bit longer. And I use my 2 fingers. And with 2 fingers, I push down and I pull back. Okay? Push too hard. Push down and roll. Push down and roll. Push down and roll. Push down and roll. So they come a little bit longer. And I kind of like them a little bit more like that. They're also faster to make. Now, another thing you can do, and this is for the adults, so please do not attempt this with your kids, right, Lee? So we can get one of the snakes that Lino made, for example, cut it into smaller pieces, and then with a knife, a butter knife, what we do is we basically pull back with the knife. So when we do that, the shape of it, I pulled a little bit too hard. Let's see. So that's the shape of it. It comes a little bit more thin and longer. So you can do that as well. So you can use a knife and just roll it, or you can use your fingers and just roll it. It's really a matter of how you like them shaped. This is the traditional shape you will find in Italy. It's made with a knife most of the times. So once you've finished one of the balls, you can continue with the other ball. Same concept. You just roll it out. Right, Lee? You're going to roll out? Or you want to make a little ball in the meanwhile? Yeah. Another one I like to do with Lino, there's another pasta shape. I will show it to you guys. It's called orecchiette. You don't have to make all these pasta shapes. You can stick only to one. But basically, I roll it out at the same thickness of the pinky, and I cut it into little pieces. And then in this case, we won't have to use a knife. I know, bud. So with the knife, we make the shape of a cavatelli, like we were doing before. And then we basically, this sticking, we basically turn it on our thumb. So it makes a little ear. That's called orecchiette. And I like to do that with Lino because I'll get his little thumb and like stick it on his thumb. But if not, you can just stick to cavatelli. It's very easy. So once again, just roll on them. And make as many as you want. So what I did is I basically made 2 of those balls that we initially divided into 4 pieces. I put them in the tray. I coat them very well with flour so they don't stick. Okay. Once that's done, your cavatelli are basically ready. So you can either leave them out to dry out and consume them later, or you can just cook them in the moment. And personally, I like to cook them in the moment. With the dough that's left over, what you can do is just keep it in plastic wrap and save it if you have any, or you can just use it all. That's up to you. Here, you want to make some more? Ready? Let's roll some out. Here, I'll help you, okay? Let's make some snakes. Snaky, snaky, snakies, snaky, snaky, snakes. All right. You're grabbing it? Good job. And then what I do is I'm going to cut this, Lino, so watch out. Perfect. You're going to hold on to that piece, but you're going to make that one. That's great. Yeah. So now, while I'm making these ones, my water is boiling at this point. So when it's about to boil, when it's boiling, you want to get a nice handful of salt and add it to the water. Why? Because pasta needs to be tasty and it needs to be basically like it's cooked in the ocean. So what I do is get some salt and add it to my water. I don't add salt to the sauce. Now, in the meanwhile, your sauce is cooking. Yeah, we're going to transfer by the sauce, okay, Lino? So we can show everyone what we're doing. So just give me 1 second. Okay. All right, so here I have the sauce, the cherry tomatoes going. And, you know, they're slowly cooking, so you can just keep that lid on. And then I have the pasta water there cooking, okay? So it's literally boiling right now. So once it's boiling, I like to get like a little scoop. So something like this. I get the cavatelli on the scoop, and I pour it in the water. When it comes to fresh pasta, it literally takes minutes for it to cook, meaning 1 or 2 minutes. So you just got to keep an eye on it. Now, the trick, as I was saying, is to get a little bit of this pasta water that now contains the flour and add it into your sauce. So either cherry tomatoes, either it is a regular tomato puree or pesto. That is going to create starch in it. And so that starch is basically going to make creamy your sauce. So when in Italy you see a very creamy dish, it's because we're using the pasta water. We're not using heavy cream. So in this case, you can also like kind of like push down your tomatoes if you wanted. Now, once the pasta water's in, I put the flame a little bit higher because we want it to absorb and kind of become creamy, right, Lino? Oh my goodness, that dough is completely smashed in your hands. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to wash your hands now really well, buddy. Come here, okay? So, while the pasta water and the sauce are going, as I said, you're gonna start noticing that the pasta goes on top of the water, so it starts floating. So what you want to do in that moment is basically get your scoop and start scooping it out without the water and adding it to your sauce. Okay, so if you have either a scoop, in this case, what's really good thing to use is one of these. I'll show you guys in a second. This is one of these. So you can just get the pasta and like add it in your sauce. And why we add it is because by doing it this way, it's going to keep still some of that starchy water versus straining it. So we don't want to do that because we want the pasta to be nice and coated from that starchy water. Okay, and then it's basically in your pan, high flame, and you just let it go, okay? So I let it cook another minute or two, and then your pasta is basically ready. And every once in a while, you can just give it a stir, but if you I'll put it a little bit closer. It's creating a cream, and that cream is due to that pasta water. So I just keep turning. The more I turn, more that pasta is going to absorb the sauce. So it's going to become more dense. And that's what you kind of want. I just made a small portion. I'm by myself at home with Lino. When my wife comes tonight, she's going to eat them, but I'm going to make them fresh again. And then after you give it like a minute or two, you can just, at this point, get your pasta and plate it. So we'll show you guys. And I plate it straight from the pot, because again, we want that sauce to come out. And be nice and creamy. Okay. So once you obtain something like this, you're pretty much ready to eat. So what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to move you guys again. Just give me 1 second. Let's drop the camera. Got a little bit more of a better look here. So once you have your pasta in, you can just add a leaf of basil if you want. And just throw it there. And then you're ready to taste it. I don't know what everyone is looking at right now, if they're ready to eat or not, but we're going to try some. I think it came goodly. Do you want to taste a little? Here. Daddy will use his hands to help you. No? You want some? How was that? Good? Got a little smile there? So Lino got a little smile, so that means it's pretty okay, pretty decent. But that's how you would make fresh pasta. And then now you can have dinner with the whole entire family and such. I'm gonna move you guys on my other camera. So, does anyone have any questions? Betsy's husband's still working it out there, the dough. So he's like, I'm not eating for at least another like 15, 20 minutes.
We're doing okay over here. We're doing batches of the pasta because we all want to eat it.
Yeah.
So it's starting to. The first batch is floating, so we're making it go. It's great.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or anything I can kind of help with?
I have a question. I was under the impression you used egg in making noodles. Is that?
So there's two types of pastas. You have an egg pasta and then you have a flour and water pasta. So the egg pasta is going to be a little bit more heavy versus flour and water only. But also the main difference is this is the type of pasta they make in the southern part of Italy. They don't use egg in the northern part where it's a little bit more hearty as food. They use egg, and at that point you're making lasagna sheets and all that sort of stuff. But basically, yeah. So when you're using egg, though, the concept's very similar. So for every 60 grams of flour, you're using one egg. Okay, so that's basically how you're kind of working it out. So if you're doing 120 grams, you would use basically 2 eggs. You can use only egg yolks. That's definitely the best thing to do. And it's basically the same concept. You're working it with your hands in the same way we did, and then you're just having it rest, and then you're flattening it out and making lasagna sheets. If you have like a KitchenAid or something like that that has like, you know, shapes of pasta, you can put it through the little machine.
Yeah. So
But
I was really impressed. We only had all-purpose on it. So does the semolina flour have like is it similar to? Does it have more like protein or glutens in it that make it bind better?
Yeah. So what makes it bind is that gluten for sure. So that's why I said before with a gluten-free pasta, you can totally do it, but it's gonna take a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit harder for it to bind. Because there's no agent there that is basically creating, that gluten to form. Versus in regular flour, you do have those proteins that are present that basically end up forming the gluten. In the case of pasta, we don't use yeast, but if we were to use any yeast, it would be only for baking purposes because we want the dough to rise. In this case, we don't use any yeast, so we just go and like work on it. That's pretty much it.
Ready to try it, Rory?
Cool.
How is it?
Cool. Any other questions?
Ready? You gonna try your pasta? It's hot.
How, if you make the fresh pasta but you don't cook it right away, how long will it be good, and what's the best way to store it?
Yeah. So if you want it still fresh, when it's fresh, the texture of it is kind of more hard, more mushy, also at the same time. So it's an interesting texture. If you wanted to keep it with that type of texture, what you want to do is basically put them in the flour and put it in your fridge, and it'll keep that consistency. If you keep it out, you don't need to cover it. It's just gonna basically gonna dry out, and it's gonna kind of be like the pasta that you buy in a box. So the flour that I use, the Semolina flour, is basically how regular pasta is made. So if you were to use any type of pasta, it says here on the bottom, organic durum wheat semolina, and it's basically the same concept. So if we left it there for hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, it's just gonna dry out, and it's gonna become like a packaged type of pasta. That's all. So at that point, you can store it, and it's pretty good at least for at least 2 weeks, I would say. There's no specific timing to it. It depends from the humidity of your home. It depends, from the temperature outside and all of that. So, if it's pretty warm, probably about 8 to 10 hours, you'll feel it. You can touch it and feel that it's like nice and hard. So at that point, you can just put them in a Ziploc bag and store them in a cabinet, and that's it. So you can eat that pasta in 5 hours, in 6 hours. You can have it for dinner tonight. Just keep it out. It's going to take a little bit longer to cook. So at that point, it's going to be similar to like when you cook a bag of pasta. So you're going to be more around like 5-6 minutes. So at that point, you need to taste it to see if it's ready. With the fresh pasta, once you see them float, they're basically ready. So you can take them out. Okay. But that's really the concept of it. You know, and it's something I have fun with Lino, of course, doing all of these. Sometimes we have a little bit more fun. Sometimes we have a little bit less fun. But, you know, we try to do these type of things more from like also a sensory perspective and all of that. You know, every kid is a little bit different and has, you know, different things that they enjoy. But, you know, I have fun with it. And honestly, it's a good activity to do. So I recommend it to anyone as a thing. You know, even if the pasta, I mean, clearly in this case, it didn't come perfect. It wasn't all shaped in the same way because I showed you guys 2 to 3 different ways. The consistency of it is still correct. So it's still going to be good to eat. So, you know, when I do like these pasta classes, even in person, sometimes I make people do 4 or 5 different shapes and just throw it all together. So you're eating different shapes, but the cooking time is all the same when it comes to the fresh pasta. So at that point, it's you know, just whatever. So you can even like try to roll them out as spaghetti if you wanted and make them very thin and just cook them like that. So if you had it like this, you can totally just keep it like this and cook it like this as well. So it'll be kind of like a spaghetti. So it's something you can totally do and totally have fun with. Any other questions or all set here? I want to see on Instagram all of you tag, of course, Hope for HIE with your plate, you know, and all of that. So please make sure that today, you know, you do that so that I can see how your plates were and judge them. No, I'm joking. So I can just, you know, kind of see. And if anyone has any questions, you guys can contact me at any point, of course. So.
Ethan gives it a thumbs up.
Okay.
Show me.
Perfect.
Did you like
Well,
it?
it was a pleasure for me to do this. And, you know, Betsy, I give you my availability to do it again. If anyone else wants to participate in the future, I'd love to do it again. It is very easy. It's something that, you know, within 45 minutes to an hour can be done as a family activity, you know. So please, if anyone ever wants to ask me a question or anything, just contact me. You can follow Lino's profile or contact me on my profile. That's more than fine. And that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for participating. You know, I like to share the things I do with Lino. So I thank everyone for being on the call, you know, and having a little bit of fun with us today. Are you saying bye?
He's like, I am done, Dad. Thank you.
Right, I'm done. It's time for me to nap now.
This was awesome. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
We
Absolutely.
recorded it, so we'll share that out as well for people that couldn't join us live.
Perfect.
And we are enjoying this over here. This is so, it's delicious and fun. So thank you
Perfect.
for,
Perfect. It was my pleasure.
Max will try it too.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Say it again. Sorry.